last week I was out at the bars, you know, just really living my best life, and I kid you not, I end up going home with this Brad Pitt-looking, Chris Pine-smelling guy who danced like Ellen DeGeneres, and we had the best time. But the next morning, I'm waking up and he's coming out of the bathroom, and he looked more like Steve Buscemi. Because it was Steve Buscemi. It's too bad it wasn't Mr. Adam Levine over here. I see you. So I quickly gathered everything that I saw of mine and sacrificed the rest. Goodbye, left shoe. It's totally fine, right? I look like I'm out enjoying my day. Saturday night heel, Sunday brunch heel. Day-old mascara, the smoky-eyed look. A strong sense of denial is a great recipe for minimizing the shame factor. What? I'm a consenting, responsible adult woman, and I had sex last week with Steve Buscemi. I did it. And now I am on the walk of shame. My feet hurt. The Daily Beast of May 1st, 2014 reminds us that the walk of shame posits that any woman who is sexually active should feel embarrassed for her behavior. Despite the fact that the walk of shame is well known socially, it's garnered little scholarly research. In a 2008 article in the ETC Quarterly, Brett Lunsford stated that he could only find one scholarly source that discussed the walk of shame, and even then it was only briefly mentioned. So before y'all start making tally marks as to how many sources I have in this speech, that's part of the problem. We need more sources, because most of us will experience the walk of shame at some point in our lives. Or if you're like me, several. I'm a pro. Speaker credibility. So today, let's wipe off this socially constructed day-old makeup and to understand the causes to the stigma around the walk of shame. Next, some effects, before finally arriving at some simple solutions to what I call Sunday morning. But what previously cited Brett Lunsford calls the punishment of female sexuality. So what are the causes to the stigma around the walk of shame, you might be asking? Well, calm down, baby birds. Mama's gonna feed ya. There are two, a surprisingly long-standing history and our understanding of shame itself. But first, the walk of shame is really just a tale as old as time. Since the 14th century, but these women were in France in their underpants, walking barefoot in the streets. No, but seriously. Time magazine of June 15th, 2015 says that we can actually retrace the steps of the walk of shame back to the 14th century. And this long history has caused the perpetuated stigma that we still see today. The scene made famous in season 5 HBO's Game of Thrones, where Cersei Lannister performed her own walk of shame, was actually based off 14th century France, when King Richard III punished Jane Shore, a mistress of the former king, by forcing her to parade through the city streets with no shoes and only her undergarments on. If you're wondering why I'm saying undergarments, it's because no one likes the word panties, or moist, or moist panties. The second cause to the stigma that we still see today is our understanding of shame itself. Webster's Dictionary, yeah, I know, but we already talked about the source issue, says that shame is the feeling of sadness, sorrow, or regret because you believe you've done something wrong. So in other words, shame is that really popular girl at AFA who was like, "No, Lane, you can't smoke with us. Well, because your hair is too frizzy and you have a run in your pantyhose. Tanya, please hang out with me." Essentially, shame is synonymous with the experience of being female, much like menstruating, mammograms, or trying to find the Gale to your Oprah. In her March 2012 TED Talk, Brene Brown of the University of Houston Graduate School of Social Work said, "For women, shame is do it all. Do it perfectly, and never let them see you sweat. It is a web of unattainable, conflicting expectations about who we are supposed to be, and it's a straitjacket." Okay, ladies, now let's get information and slay some effects. There are 97. Just kidding, we all know we're gonna talk about 2. Publicizing sexual activity and internalized shame. But first, the walk of shame allows sexual activity to become public knowledge, which allows it to be scrutinized. Let's separate the 2 components of the walk of shame. Separately, neither are considered shameful. It's not the act of walking home alone, nor is it the sexual act itself. But what happens is when you push these 2 ideas together, you turn something that was once private into something that's now public. In their book, The Walk of Shame, published in April 2013, authors Nicolette Corbeau and Mira Moshe explain that what's considered shameful is that the woman's no longer keeping her sexual activity concealed. Women then are taught that our sexuality is so embarrassing that we should feel ashamed for simply participating in it. This leads into our next effect, internalized shame. Previously cited, Brene Brown has spent nearly 10 years researching shame, which just basically means that she spent a shit ton of time with her in-laws. Brown states that shame is the swampland of the soul and an epidemic in our culture. For women, shame is internalized because we're shamed for having sex, and we're shamed for not having sex. It's a classic case of damned if you do him too. Because basically, you could have spent the whole night watching Netflix and just actually chilling. You know, like no sex involved. Like maybe you were having a popsicle, but not that kind of popsicle, the other kind of popsicle. Or a Choco Taco. I'm not here to judge your preferences. And yet, the next morning, you will still experience the feeling of shame associated with the walk of shame. Look, I'm not afraid to be walking over here because we're about to solve this bitch. I will offer you 2, preparation and redefining the experience. But first, there is a company called Urban Aid which released a product called the Shame on You Kit, geared only for women using pink and frilly fonts. Now, I'm one for always being prepared because I know from personal experience that sometimes you gotta work after a night of hunting. But this product literally has shame on you in the title. So I've reimagined a more gender-neutral kit. I call it the Shame Wow. It has some Tic Tacs and a toothbrush. And I got hot sauce in my bag. Schwager. That's my name. Schwager is my name. Fortunately, there's also something that I have in here. Get rid of that. I have some moist towelettes. Oh, it's there! It's there! Gotta go back over to my 3rd main body point. Next, let's redefine the experience. I say we call it the strut of success. The hike of hell yeah! The march of missionary accomplished. And instead of avoiding eye contact with the person passing you on the street, walk with them. A new kind of pride parade. Just look them in the eye and sing this joyful Lonely Island tune. I just had sex. Everybody sang, and it felt so good. We all had sex. A woman let me put my, no, stop it. Gosh, you guys, you're so loud. See, I'm not saying that we should get rid of the term altogether. I'm just saying that we should use it for people who actually deserve it, like Rush V, the idiot who created the online messaging board saying that rape should be legal if done on private property. Now, little side note, I know a few people who are not walking in shame. The all-female ADS final round! Yes, girls! Yes, girls! Yes, girls! Right? Yes! 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 You see, this speech is about more than just the walk of shame. It's a micro example of a macro issue. It's a part of rape culture, slut shaming, sexual harassment, and this strange idea that women don't have agency over our own bodies. I'm 26 years old and I recently got married, so I'm not performing the walk of shame anymore. So just consider this a little message from me to you, to every young woman in this audience, to the little girl that I hope to have one day, hopefully sooner than later, because I would tell her, like I'm telling you all right now, society is going to try to tell you that your bodies are wrong or bad or embarrassing. But don't believe them for a single second, because you are the only person who has power over your own body, and never let someone take that away from you. We talked about the causes to the stigma, some simple effects, and some simple solutions to the walk that just ain't so shameful after all. I learned that the walk of shame has nothing to do with me, and has all to do with a society that's been built to shame me. So, it might be called the walk of shame, but I'm not ashamed. So the next time that you find yourself on the opposite side of town in Steve Buscemi's apartment, just like looking like a hot mess, just stitch your heels, quickly gather all of your things, raise your head high, and strut.